Good morning, Uncle Lou here. Yep, to everyone in the path of the storm, whether it's already passed, you're getting it now, or you're about to get it, I hope you and your family are safe, and everything works out for you with no damage or loss of life or anything like that. Thinking about y'all. As for the Lou's, we're safe and accounted for. All the hatches are battened down. So let's talk some week 3 football. Just gotta try to rebuild. Good morning. Yep, that's right. It's me, Uncle Lou, live for you on LouTube. Yep, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Well, let's talk about some of the games coming up this week. Of course, Georgia's playing Samford this week, not Stanford, Samford. Yeah, playing Samford this week. So, not a whole lot to talk about there. I will have a video tomorrow on some thoughts on that game, but you know, it won't be a you know, like a typical trash talking video because it is Samford. Or will it? Find out tomorrow. But anyway, let's start here with this week's game. Tennessee at Florida? Maybe. Supposed to be at Florida. A matchup of 2 top 25 teams here, Tennessee and Florida. Hurricane Irma, you know, has caused a lot of problems down in Florida. They may end up having to move this game out of Gainesville to a neutral site location. They're talking about Atlanta, Charlotte, Jacksonville, Birmingham, whatever. They may end up having to move this game somewhere if they can't play it in Gainesville, but it will not be canceled. It will 100% be played this Saturday at 3:30. It's just a matter of where at this point. They've changed the rules around about how these teams cancel games and who gets to decide where they're at, and it's up to the SEC. It's not up to Tennessee or Florida. It's up to the SEC Commissioner, so this game will be played on the exact date and time that it's supposed to, just a matter of where. Now, this is an intriguing matchup here. Now, honestly, they might want to consider playing this game at a landfill because this involves 2 of the worst units in the SEC. Florida's garbage offense against Tennessee's trash can defense. If Florida can't score on this defense, then their issues are even bigger than anybody imagined because Tennessee's defense is pathetic. Non-existent, even. I mean, you look at the Georgia Tech game, they gave up over 600 yards, 450 yards rushing. In Tennessee's last 5 games, they've given up 3,000 yards. Unbelievable. I mean, that's 600 a game. It's not an anomaly. That's a trend. And don't hit me with the last year stuff because this is carrying into this year too. Defense horrible. There's a picture floating around Facebook. I don't know if you've seen it, of Tennessee's game versus Indiana State this past weekend. And it's like 3rd and less than a yard, right? And Tennessee's defensive line is actually lined up 1.5 yards off the ball. They're actually lined up behind where Indiana State needed to get for a first down. I don't know what type of coaching or strategy that is there. One of the weirdest things I've seen. They've got one of the worst defensive backs in all of America. I can't remember the guy's name now. I think it's number 12. The guy is terrible. Tennessee fans, you'll know who I'm talking about. This guy is god-awful. Jumper is no good. I guess who's at your middle linebacker? Anyway, your defense is awful. Florida, I actually feel bad for you. You really needed to play a game this past weekend, so it really sucks if you're Florida or a Florida fan that you guys didn't get to play this game against Northern Colorado, because it's obvious you still have a very long way to go on offense. And it would have been nice if you're Florida or a Florida fan to get a chance to work some of those things out against Northern Colorado. You know, a lot of times in the middle of the year, if something happens and a game has to get canceled, even though a team or a fan would never admit this, it's actually a blessing in disguise and something teams wouldn't mind happening, you know, especially if you've got guys that are banged up or need to heal, or it's just a pointless game, why take the risk of injury, that kind of thing. But in Florida's case, early in the season, after that egg they laid against Michigan offensively, where they just did absolutely nothing, scored 3 points on offense, Florida needed this game. So I actually think this is an advantage for Tennessee that Florida didn't get to play this week. Like I said, later in the year, it might be an advantage for the team that skipped the game, but Florida really needed to play this game and didn't get to do it. Also, not knowing where the game's going to be played, Florida's schedule is disrupted. And say what you want about that, but routine is a big part of game preparation. I mean, it just is. I mean, if you look at teams, they do the exact same routine every single week. And Florida has not been able to do that for going on 4 or 5 days now, and who knows how long it's going to be. They may not be able to get back into Gainesville this week. I don't know. I don't know how bad this storm has been in Gainesville. I know there's like 5 million people in Florida without power. I don't know how much of that involves Gainesville, or if it's any at all. I haven't watched much news this morning. So, I mean, that can't be good if you're Florida. Meanwhile, Tennessee knew they were going to have to travel to play this game, so their routine is not really changing. They're staying in Knoxville, practicing all week like they normally do, and then, you know, they're going to get on a plane like they normally do, and that plane's going to fly them to wherever it is that the game happens to be played. I don't see where it makes a difference for Tennessee whether they travel to Florida or to a neutral site game. Again, something that could be a benefit for Tennessee. If the game is moved to Atlanta, for example, do we see more Tennessee fans show up for that game than would be willing to go to Gainesville? Do we see less Florida fans show up because of the hurricane and people dealing with power outages and property damage and things like that? So there's a lot of things because of this storm that are flipping this game to Tennessee's advantage. Florida is favored in this game. It's a little bit of a head scratcher. I'm not ready to make a prediction on this game today. I'll do another video later in the week, probably Friday, and I'll let you nail me down on a prediction then. But I don't know. But I'm telling you, watching Florida's offense against Tennessee's defense is going to be very, very interesting, because those two units are just terrible, god-awful even. But anyway, what other games are this week? Well, you got LSU at Mississippi State. This is an interesting one. LSU has looked really, really good. Mississippi State's 2-0, really hasn't been tested yet. We'll find out more about Mississippi State this week. This is a game I'm interested in for obvious reasons. Georgia plays Mississippi State in 2 weeks. Samford this week. Mississippi State the following week at home. So our first SEC game this year against a West team that we don't normally play. They're on the rotation. You know, Auburn is the team we play every year from the West, so we're on a rotation with the other teams, and up this year, Mississippi State. So that'll be a game I'm interested in watching. You know, I know they have a good quarterback, Nick Fitzgerald. I can't see Mississippi State beating LSU. I just think LSU is a better team, but the game is at Mississippi State. You know, and in the SEC, anything can happen, and like I said, we don't know much about Mississippi State right now, but we will find out for sure in this LSU game. But I just can't see Mississippi State beating LSU, but we'll see. Another interesting game, Clemson, Louisville. This one at Louisville. Clemson has a chance to lose this game, in my opinion. So much hype and focus on last week's game, a home game against Auburn, 2 top 10 teams. Well, I think Auburn was 12 or something. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But anyway, two highly ranked teams. A game that people, you know, sorry, all over the country. I'm getting over bronchitis. I'm on antibiotics. It should be gone in a day or two. But anyway, a game that everybody was looking forward to. Now, Louisville, a good team too, so it's not a situation, it's not a trap game or anything like that. I mean, you're not overlooking Louisville. I mean, they're undefeated. They score a bunch of points. They've got the reigning Heisman winner, Lamar Jackson, on their team. But the game is at Louisville, and I promise you, this is Louisville's biggest game of the year. You know, pretty much every game if you're playing Clemson this year in the ACC, that's your game that you've had circled. So that's something that Clemson's going to have to learn to deal with. I mean, this is something that Alabama deals with all the time. You know, whoever plays Alabama, that's their biggest game of the year. Clemson's going to go through that now, having won the national championship last year. So everybody's going to have the Clemson game circled. And Louisville is a dangerous team, and Lamar Jackson can really get loose. One of the most exciting games last year, all season long, was Clemson and Louisville, Deshaun versus Lamar Jackson. That was just an amazing game. Clemson pulled it out at the end in Death Valley. This year in Louisville. Obviously, Clemson is the better overall team, without question. Lamar Jackson may be the best player on the field. Clemson does have a better team. Clemson will win this game if they can find a way to slow Lamar Jackson down. I know I'm Captain Obvious here, but really, what else can you say about this game? No one's going to argue that Louisville is a better overall team than Clemson. Louisville's only chance to win the majority of their games is to have Lamar Jackson go nuts. So we'll see what happens in that one. A couple of other SEC teams playing some non-con games against other Power 5 teams. You've got Mizzou and Purdue. This one's at Missouri. Missouri's going to win this game. Purdue's terrible. The Big Ten as a whole, not that good. Ohio State proved that this past weekend. Missouri should bounce back from a disappointing loss to South Carolina and take care of Purdue. It's in Missouri. Missouri will be back to scoring 40, 50 points a game, and they'll win this game, 45-30, something like that. Then you got Kansas State and Vanderbilt. I'm going to tell you something right now. Kansas State is ranked. Vanderbilt's not. Vanderbilt's winning this game. I have been impressed with Vanderbilt. Everybody knows Ralph Webb is pretty good. Their defense has looked really good. Offensively, pretty much all they've had is Ralph Webb. But they've looked better this year offensively than even I thought they would. And if their defense is still as good as it has been, Vanderbilt could win 7 or 8 games this year, I think. And I think they get the win against Kansas State. Again, a home game for Vandy. So like Mizzou, they play at home. Kansas State at Vandy. I think this will be a good game. Kansas State got a good coach. What's his name? Skeletor, right here. Yeah. Skeletor versus well, shoot, what's his name? Vanderbilt coach. I was about to say Franklin. Mason. Derek Mason. Anyway, this will be a good game, I think. But I think Vanderbilt pulls this one out. And then you got Ole Miss at Cal. So SEC team traveling out west, play at Cal. Cal, not a good team. Ole Miss, more talented than Cal, but Ole Miss has zero motivation to play. NCAA camped out on their campus 24/7. It's just bad news after bad news for them. They're ineligible for postseason play. It's a dumpster fire there. You don't know what sort of motivation Ole Miss is going to even have this year. They're a hard team to figure out. Hard to pick Ole Miss games this year because of that, especially early in the season. But Ole Miss should win this game. I'm going to pick them to win. I don't know. What do you want to score? Okay, Ole Miss wins 27-17. How about that? And then you got Texas and USC. What a disappointment, man. When I did doing my preseason videos, I thought this was going to be one of the marquee games of the year. I really thought Texas was going to do something this year. I thought they had a chance at winning 9 or 10 games and coming close in the Big 12. And they just came out week 1 and got completely embarrassed by Maryland. That was just sad. Tom Herman, what are you doing? Now, yeah, you came out this past week and beat something called San Jose State, like 70-0, 56-0, I think, whatever. But come on, week 1, everyone was watching. They wanted to see what Tom Herman was going to do with the Texas talent, and you just came out and laid that egg. And I'm sorry, that just soured me on you. I can't. I'm not on the Texas hype train anymore. That's something I was definitely wrong about in the offseason. What a disappointment and an embarrassment that was against Maryland. Southern Cal humiliated Stanford this past weekend, 42-24. And Texas, you ain't Stanford. Southern Cal is going to roll in this game. I'll be shocked if this game stays within 3 scores. Something in the 17-24 point range is what I'm expecting for Southern Cal here. Don't think this will be a close one, and it's at Southern Cal. And then last but not least, Oklahoma State and Pitt. Pitt, not that good of a team, but a team, again, that I do think is going to beat some teams they're not supposed to beat this year. Last year, they beat the Big Ten champion and the ACC champion. They beat Clemson last year, and they beat Penn State last year. Now, they got murked by Penn State last week, so what does that mean? Does that mean they're not as good as last year? Does that mean Penn State overlooked them last year and got snuck up? I don't know. But they haven't been as impressive to me this year as they were last year. Pitt, I'm talking about. I do like their coach, Narduzzi or whatever. But I think Oklahoma State gets the win here. I mean, Oklahoma State is obviously the better team. I think Oklahoma State's the best team in the Big 12. I think they're better than Oklahoma. We'll find out. They play towards the end of the year in the Bedlam game, whatever they call it. But that's one to keep an eye on, just because Pitt last year did beat a couple of top teams that no one saw coming in Clemson and Penn State. Don't expect that to happen, but just something maybe to look out for. Oklahoma State should roll in that game, to be honest. But it is at Pittsburgh, so road game, crazy things can happen. But anyway, there you go. That's it. Talk more about Georgia tomorrow, Samford, the quarterback situation. What do we do when Eason gets healthy? I'll tell you tomorrow when I talk about that, and whatever else pops into this amazing mind of mine. Have a good morning if you can.